Today I'm introducing a climate shaper for my community here in Brussels. For who doesn't know who is a climate shaper, he's a person who is making a difference in their local community through sustainable, planet-friendly practice. Okay, just waiting my climate shaper here. Okay, I just see her. Just a second, I'm waiting. Here, hi. Hi, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation.
Thank you for inviting me.
I'm really happy that you take part in this incredible journey that I'm doing in the digital bootcamp, Food and Climate Shaper, that I'm currently attending with the Future Food Institute and FAO. I decided to invite you because I really think that your project Entre Nous is a really incredible best practice related to sustainability and conviviality. So I really want that more people know your project. So for starting our interview, I'd like just to ask you to tell us about your story. When and how did you decide to take this journey, and when you started work on Entre Nous?
Yeah. I think that there are two elements that led me to the idea of Entre Nous. The first one is that I grew up in the city center of Naples, which is a big city, but my grandfather had a small piece of land behind my house where he grew his own vegetables. He had chickens, turkeys, rabbits, even pigs. And it means that during my whole childhood, my mother never bought a tomato sauce, for example, or an egg. And I think that this has had a huge influence on my life, even if in an unconscious way. And the second fact is that I moved to Brussels to do an internship in an European NGO after my degree in international relations. And I understood that it wasn't my place. I didn't feel like myself in this European bubble full of bureaucracy with a high level of competition. So after the internship, I decided to stay in Brussels because I felt in love with the city. But I decided to make something else of my life. And the easiest things to do for me as an Italian abroad was to start working in restaurants. So because I had to pay bills, I had to pay the rent, and I wanted to be more independent from my parents. So I started in a French restaurant, and then I moved to an Italian one where I carried the kitchen all by myself. And I remember that on my very first day of work, I had to cook for like 62 people during the lunch service. And without a proper and previous experience, it was quite hard. So during that time, I started to think that that job would be the one for me, because there were a lot of things that I loved about it, such as the fact that you cook and you have a quick feedback of your work, or that food makes people happy, food brings people together, and above all is that food is culture. So you can tell your story, your tradition in your dish. And but I started to realize that the Italian restaurant business abroad had its limits, because they tend to recreate this kind of authenticity by importing everything they can from Italy. And this has an enormous environmental impact. But for me, it's not the product that gives you authenticity, but it's the story that you choose to tell about your food. So I started to dream to open a place where I wanted to recreate the atmosphere of our Italian dinners, where everybody feels at home, when everybody leaves the table with a full belly. And I wanted to do it in a sustainable way, which is the way that we learn from our grandparents. For example, using seasonal vegetables from the garden, or the zero food waste philosophy, or making our own compost to nourish the garden, making canned food during summer, like, for example, tomato sauce or eggplants in olive oil, and so on. So my idea was to open the first Italian restaurants in the very city center of Brussels with a low environmental impact. And that's why Entre Nous is a place where you can feel at home, you can eat fresh, local, organic food cooked in a traditional Italian way. Voilà.
Thank you so much. No, it's a very amazing project that you are built and you are keeping to growing up. But another interesting issue of your experience is the way that you are building your ecosystem. Here in this bootcamp, we are working a lot about this concept. So I'd like to share with you this aspect of your project. No? So could you tell us more about your ecosystems, but in terms of how you choose your local farmer, supplier, but also the relationship that you are building with other local organizations related to food sustainability, sustainable food, but also the neighborhood and the community. Because I know where your grocery restaurant is.
Yeah. So when I decided to open Entre Nous, I quit my job and I took a year off to better understand the economic and social context of Brussels. I took training to learn more about sustainable food waste, the circular economy. And I tried to connect with all the local organizations who deal with sustainable food in Brussels. Because of course the ecosystem is very important, but the social system that you build around your project is what makes the difference. It's really important to be part of a community to make things improve fastly. So I tried to connect firstly with my neighborhoods to understand if they were interested about my project, because I knew that I would have needed their support. And same things with the local authorities and with the local organization. Then I started to look for my suppliers and I met a lot of incredible people. Like, for instance, this Flemish family who is passionate about sustainable fishing and who brings me every kind of unknown species from the North Sea. Or the time that I went to visit one of the first animal farm who had received the organic label like 20 years ago. Or this couple who breeds an old sheep species and who makes this incredible cheese with the milk. And so my goal was to know the stories, know the people, know the work that is behind these products, and to be able to value them and to create a link between them and the clients. So I built this database suppliers and I tried to make a logistic around it, because it's not easy to work with several different local farmers, because sometimes they cannot deliver their products on a daily or weekly basis in Brussels, for example. So now, after 3 years, I've understood that the best way is to work with agriculture cooperatives, which are well organized, and thanks to them, you have access to a larger choice of products from the same region, which are delivered to Brussels together, instead of several different deliveries. And I also discovered a lot of circular economy projects based in Brussels, where we have this huge beer production. So we have this brewery process leftovers that are, for example, used to grow mushrooms or to bake crackers. And another aspect is the urban agriculture, which is growing faster and faster in Brussels. For example, we have this biggest aquaponic farm in the very city center of Brussels. And just to give you some examples, at Entre Nous, we use honey and herbal tea from Brussels, from local urban farmers in Brussels. So we have built so far this network of local farmers and suppliers who fits our needs. And it has been a journey, not always easy, because it keeps changing, because things evolve quite fast in this field. But the most important thing is that we feel part of a community, of a new generation of chefs and restaurant managers who try to question their ecological footprint every day. So we try to find new solutions, for example, how to compost our organic waste, because in restaurants there is this huge production of organic waste, or how to reduce the using of packaging for the takeaway, for example. And I would like to say that we have a great support from the local government, which has, for example, create this label called Good Food label, just to recognize our engagement to work in a more sustainable way. And one last thing that we try to do at Entre Nous, which is very important for me, is to spread the knowledge that we have acquired by organizing workshops with other local actors on different topics of sustainable food. For example, how to cook whole vegetables, or how to make fresh pasta with local flours, on how to make, how to compost in our apartment, how to grow vegetables indoor. So a lot of workshop, in this kind of philosophy. Voilà. So.
Thank you so much. I know very well your story, and for me it's always incredible to listen from you. And as last question, I'd like to ask you something about the future, because since the beginning, Entre Nous is always evolving. No, year by year, I saw each time different things that are happening. And so, what are your next steps within Entre Nous?
So it's quite hard to think about future steps in this particular situation that we are living right now. But so the main goal is to survive the crisis. But I think that projects like mine are even more resilient compared to classic ones, because working with people instead of big companies means that you have to adjust every day. So I think that we will be more flexible and capable to change our offers, to adapt to the new situations. But speaking about my hopes and dreams, I would love to rent a small piece of land and create a training school of permaculture destined to unemployed young people. And of course, I'd love to use part of the harvest at Entre Nous directly. this is my big dream. We will see if it's possible or not. And another things that I'm about that I'm thinking about is to launch a collective production of canned food in my neighborhood to share our South Italian tradition. For example, it could be very, very funny to launch a production of tomato sauce in my neighborhood. So that's a way to make people aware of the fact that you can eat, you can conserve tomatoes during the summer and eat them all along winter. And the last thing that I'm thinking about is this project to reuse tons of unsold bread from the local market, because it represents a huge problem in Brussels. And the idea would be to transform it into bread crumble, to sell it, and to finance the organization of workshops on how to reuse old bread in our daily recipes. So I think this one could be the easiest one to realize. Yeah, we will see. First thing is to come back in September and see how things go, and then we will see.
Okay, thank you so much, Sara. It was a pleasure, and for us, I think, also for the Digital Bootcamp, it was a very, very great contribution for our journey. And for the moment, thank you so much. But I'm pretty sure that we will have other update by you, because you are an incredible climate shaper, and I'm glad that you take part of this interview. Thank you so much,
Thank
Sara.
you for having me.
Thank you.
And good luck for the rest of the journey.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.